Good evening, everybody. Everybody that's here in the theater, everybody that's watching out there on YouTube, everybody in a remote viewing position. Welcome to Kent's Cabaret Theater, part of the fantastic Magic Center in Georgetown, Texas. I'm Kent Cummins, and as somebody mentioned before the show started, this is my playpen. This is just fun. It's a nice place to be able to do things. And I'm so honored and humbled that I have the opportunity to plan and present the Broken Wand ceremony for our dear friend Ramon Galindo. Our paths crossed for the first time in 1957. I was working at the magic store in San Antonio, and the proprietor took me to my first magic convention, the International Brotherhood of Magicians at the Rice Hotel in Houston, Texas. And there were probably 1,000 people there. I remember meeting Harlan Tarbell. I remember meeting some famous magicians, but I don't remember meeting a young guy named Ramon Galindo. He was young back then. And I asked Josie, I said, do you know whether Ramon was actually at that convention? She says, I was 5 years old. I said, well, I was 14, come on. But she says, he loved magic so much and he was so active then. That's when he was competing in contests. So the chances are very good that he was there and I was there. And we just didn't know each other. And I didn't really get to know him until I left Army active duty in 1976 and moved back to Austin. I say back to Austin because this is where I got my MBA a few years earlier. And Ramon and I became fast friends, and one of the first things he did was show me a film of my brother and I juggling at the 1961 TAOM, Texas Association of Magicians, that's why we call it TAOM, convention. So he was filming me in 1960 and 1961, and we since became fast friends. Now, the purpose of the evening is to honor Ramon through a ceremony that magicians call the Broken Wand ceremony, which we'll explain closer to the end. But first, let's remind ourselves of why we're honoring a tailor, an entrepreneur, an Army veteran, a videographer, an award-winning filmmaker, a family man. Why? Because he was also a magician. Do we have that short video?
this way. Yeah, we're ready to go down. Okay.
Recent visits, I think he was only like maybe 98 years old when he was doing that one-handed card shuffle. And that was the nature of our visits. I had so many opportunities just to share ideas with him. And any time that I came to visit him, he was always inventing something, building something, improving something. He always had something very interesting happening. And it was just absolutely amazing. I thought I would show you, those of you who are watching on YouTube, because you didn't have a chance to see, we've got some of his stuff on display. I like this because, let's see, get it out of the spotlight. This is the souvenir program from the 1983 TAOM convention. And the reason that's relevant to me is I was chairman then, and I sold Ramon a half-page ad in the program. Genie magazine. Genie is one of the oldest and most respected magic magazines anywhere, and there are 15 pages of information about Ramon, contributed by magicians from all over the place. I remember just not that many years ago that I had the privilege of going with Ramon to the TAOM convention in Frisco, Texas. And it was great being with him because every magician there wanted to talk to Ramon. So I got to talk to them also. And the 2009 TAOM actually dedicated their convention to Ramon. Perhaps if you were in Austin, you would have seen the front page article, wonderful article about him. If you're into bird magic, you might have a copy of his book, A Bird in Hand. I also have a copy in Espanol. And I also have his video that accompanies the book. My original copy was VHS, of course. And there's just so much more. Of course, his famous costume. I mean, when he started performing, he was performing in a black tux, just like all magicians were back then. And he says it was Siegfried from Siegfried and Roy who told him, "I don't like your costume. You're a tailor. You're a Mexican. Make yourself a Mexican outfit." And he didn't immediately embrace the idea, but eventually did. And of course, that's the costume you see on the cover of Genie magazine and on so much of his stuff. And there it is on display. Some of his trophies. I mentioned that 1957 was an important year. Well, while I was going to my first magic convention, he was competing for, I think it was the third time, in a contest at the TAOM convention, and he wasn't winning. But in 1957, he had learned enough, he had paid enough attention and done enough practice, he believed in practice, that he won that big trophy in the middle is the Al Sharp Trophy. And that was a trophy won a couple years earlier by Andre Cole and other magicians who became famous. But that's not the story. The story is the very next year, 1958, he competed again, won it again, and because the same person had won it twice, they retired the trophy. And so that's why he gets to keep that, and that's why we still have that in his collection. And you'll see some of his other trophies. It's interesting, the trophy there on the front of the table, I believe was 2007, and the Al Sharp Trophy, the first one was 1957, if my math is correct. That's half a century between winning a trophy for the first time and winning a trophy just a little bit later. He was absolutely amazing. A few of his props are on display, but Ramon wasn't about props. His shows were about cards and coins and safety pins and, oh, by the way, birds. World renowned for his work with birds. So those are some of the fun things that those of us who are here get to look at and you get to see virtually. But a few of his friends happen to live in this area, and I've invited them to come tell you a few favorite stories. One story each, please. We could, any of us, tell Ramon stories for the rest of the night and on for the rest of the week, because he was around for 99 years, and we knew him, loved him for a long time, and he was a fascinating man. But the first person I've invited on stage to tell a story my good friend, Peter the Adequate.
I brought with me the thing that got Ramon's love for magic started. When Ramon was a little boy, his father came back from a carnival with a little magic that he bought and tried to show it to his wife. It was this, a little mouse would run along his fingers. He thought it was wonderful. His wife said, Dios mío, sácalo, es el demonio. And this pleased Ramon so much that he decided he wanted to find out more about it and proceeded to build a career in magic. I find it very interesting that the very first prop should be a small animal, some thread, and some magic. Those were the things that made up most of Ramon's life. Very short story about him. I met Ramon, one of the first people I met with the magic community when I came to Austin. I was looking for somebody to fix a jacket that I had, found a tailor downtown, and it just so happened to be his. And I tried to explain to him that I wanted this special pocket sewed in there, and he, of course, immediately not only knew what I wanted, but had a much better way of doing it. And then he told me about the magic clubs. And then a few years later, he got me involved in my first ever magic convention that I'd been a part of. It was a magic convention that he was running. The first night was going to be a Mexican theme. And he asked me if I would MC it because all the magicians were going to be from Mexico, and he felt that I could translate for them backstage. So I came up with this wonderful idea. I wanted to open up the show hanging from a straitjacket filled with candy, like a piñata, while kids were hitting me in the straitjacket, and candy would start to fall out as I escaped from it. And I said, and what would be wonderful is if we could just play mariachi music in the back. And Ramon said, we'll just get mariachis. And he did. He brought in a whole mariachi for the opening of that. What he did not tell me was that he not only didn't want me to translate for the magicians backstage, but one of the magicians was a Mexican comic magician who did all patter comedy in Spanish. And I was supposed to translate on the spot for that. I've never been more nervous in my entire life. But I couldn't thank Ramon for that more because it led to a lot of involvement with many, many conventions, including running my own convention at one point. And that's about it. I just want to add that his love for magic never, ever stopped. Back in November, I went by to bring him a special deck of cards that he'd been asking me for a long time to look for because it's just the right size so he could continue to work on his one-handed shuffle. And this was back in November. So we'll miss you, Ramon.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Peter. And by the way, that little video of the one-handed shuffle went viral on Facebook. I just posted it so that local magicians could see it. And the last time I looked, it had well over 1,000 views from all over the world. Now, the reason I'm carrying this top hat, other than the fact that I'm a magician, and magicians sometimes do that, is that we have a special souvenir for everybody who's here in the audience. Inside this is the complete story of Ramon's first love of magic and a genuine Wonder Mouse. So you will have your own Wonder Mouse, also one of his business cards, and the story. And there's one of these for everybody that's here. This was sitting by the door. Now you know you can grab one on the way out. Now, for people that are watching on YouTube, you're thinking, well, that's not fair. Okay, here's the deal. Send me an email, kent@magichotline.com. Include your mailing address. That's snail mail, by the way. I can't email these, okay? Include your mailing address and just tell me you want a Wonder Mouse, and I will send one to you, kent@magichotline.com, while supplies last. Now, we could have 100 people here telling Ramon stories. We only have a few. One of them, our good friend, C.J. Johnson.
All right. Well, hi, and I'm glad to see people. Not thrilled about why we're here, but we all love Ramon. I like that part of it. At the SAM convention in San Antonio, I was there with my wife, and we were helping, and I come out of the bathroom, and I'm crying coming out of the bathroom. And my wife is like, what could possibly have happened in the bathroom that has you coming out crying like a child. And I said, Ramon asked me while we were washing our hands at the sink, asked me, he says, I love that story that you tell about me. And if they ask for people to tell stories at my funeral, would you do that? And I said, of course. And family spoke at the funeral, which is exactly right. And he said, if you ask, he said, so the broken wand, I'm going to share my story with of Ramon, as he asked me to do. Ramon, as everybody knows, was an amazing tailor. And in the late 80s, I used to have a delivery business, a balloon delivery business, and worked with Peter at that time too. And I would stop and I would visit Ramon every time I was downtown. I would stop off and park in front of the shop, run in, say hi. Not every time, but often, because you could still do that in downtown Austin then. You could pull up, park in front for free, run in, say hi, come out. And I was learning how to sew. And so he's like, I'm going to help you sew a suit. So go buy the materials, find a pattern you like. I go and I buy the pattern, and I buy the material that it says that I need, and I cut out everything, and I bring it in a bit at a time, and he's helping me get the belt loops right and get the lining in it right and everything, and he's just telling me what to do. He's not showing me anything. He's telling me, here's how you make this look. And I get that done, and I get the jacket done, and he's helped me put in all the toppets and a little, I can drop something here, and it'll run around and drop into this pocket, and I can reach through, and it was amazing lining and all that, but the sleeves, the cap of the sleeve right here, just looked terrible. I couldn't get that to work. And so I go in, I'm Ramon, I need help with the cap of the sleeve. It's just not working. And he goes, bring it over here. So he says, put it on. I put it on. He goes, yeah, that doesn't look good. And I'm like, yeah, I know, that's why I'm here. And he says, well, take it off. And he flips it inside out. The bolt of fabric, that is all that I have. There's no way the pattern has this much extra fabric on it. He's just ruined the entire thing. The vest is done, the pants are done, the jacket is going to look ridiculous now because there's no way there's that much extra fabric. He puts a couple pins in it, sits at the sewing machine, takes it out, flips it inside out, puts it on a form, takes a wooden mallet, hits it with the mallet. I'm like, I don't know why you're hitting it with a mallet. And I'm still looking at the scissors. I'm like, this is the greatest comedy prop in the world, and he's actually using them. And he flips it over and puts it on and puts it on me, and it fits perfect. And the cap on the sleeve is just perfectly rolled. And it was absolutely amazing because it was completely effortless for him to draw those little chalk lines, to confidently, using clown scissors, smack off that much of the fabric, and then it fit perfectly. He was truly, truly a master. And when I picture Ramon, I picture him doing his parakeet act or something like that. But to me, he's always going to be the guy with that giant pair of scissors just cutting out my jacket sleeve. So that's my memory of Ramon, and loved him just to pieces. So thank you.
Thank you, C.J. Johnson. I actually invited this next guy to talk because at the end of the funeral, we were both in the lobby, and he said, oh, let me tell you the story. And I went, oh, you got to be kidding me. People have to hear that story. And so, Ron Cartledge, come right on up.
Ramon and I traveled a lot. Had a great time traveling, and I've got a few stories to tell you that I think you will like. And the first thing that I want to tell you is that when we would walk around anywhere, people would whisper and say, gosh, those two guys, I bet they talk magic all day long. But that's not true. Ramon Galindo was a Christian. And how do I know? Because he told me so. He told me the story that when he was a kid, that he lived in a area just past Guadalupe. what we call the UT main road there. So it wasn't too far from the University of Texas. And he told me that there was a sweet lady that would come by every Sunday and pick him up, and not only take him to church, but would take all the kids in the area that wanted to go to church with him. That's how I know that Ramon was a Christian. We talked about things like that and other things besides magic. About 2 nights ago, I couldn't go to sleep. And thinking about things, and so I decided, well, I'll just reach for a magazine. And this is the one I got picked up, just by coincidence. I opened it up, and it wasn't a magazine, it was a program. And it was about the Texas Association of Magicians and their convention in 2009. And it was dedicated to Senor Ramon Galindo. What really amazed me was there were 18 write-ups from magicians to Ramon. And I'll just read you one. This is the first one in here out of 18. Ramon. My travel buddy. Thanks for all the trips. Shanghai, Beijing, Mexico City, The Hague, London, Paris, Ramon, Innsbruck, Munich, and all those other magic conventions that we attended together. Congratulations on a well-deserved honor. Thank you for all you do for magic. Your friend, Ron Cartledge. That's me. The first trip that we took, I think overseas, was a trip to Shanghai, China. And we had a great time over there. My friend from Australia, Charles Gotchi, came to the convention and had a booth, and we hung out with him a little bit. The major thing I want to tell you, though, about that convention is that I don't know how many of y'all know Moulton Crockett. He owns half of Austin, or he did. He passed away recently. But Moulton told me, and he went to school with Ramon. That's how Ramon knows him. And he told me, he said, "You have got to go to this hotel." I said, "What for?" He said, "They got the best dessert that anybody's ever seen. You just got to go there." So I told Ramon about it, and we went up there, and we sampled it, and I came back and said, "We tried your desserts, and you were right. They were really good." We did a lot of things in Shanghai. We went to let me tell you this first, that I planned most of the trips. And I planned so that our hotel or motel would be near the hotel or motel would be near the railroad track. Now, we didn't have to worry about that in Shanghai, but later on we did. We both had Eurail passes, so that's how we got around in Europe. But I'd checked out some things, and we went to a place where they had a big opera house. And I said, Ramon, it's only $2 or $3. Let's go in. So we went in. We saw a Chinese opera, and we saw them do all the twists and turns and acrobatic stuff. And then they had another one. It was like a Las Vegas show. So it was all kinds of things in Shanghai. And that was my first trip overseas with mine. There were some more after that came up. And the most important one, I think, was FISM. If you don't know what FISM is, that is the World Championships of Magic. I'd never been, but I wanted to go. Ramon had been 2 or 3 times already. So I said, let's go to FISM this year together. So we did. We wound up in The Hague, Netherlands. And we're in The Hague, Netherlands. Best convention I think I've ever been to. Had a great time. After the convention, we caught the train, came back through Belgium, and Ramon's on the train. He says, "Did we go to the Magic Circle in London?" I said, "Well, I'm a member. I don't see why I can't take you in." And he said, "I want to go there." I said, "Well, why do you want to go there?" He said, "Somebody has told me that in the library at the Magic Circle, there's a magazine and I'm on the cover." So I said, "Okay, we'll go." So we did. We went into the Magic Circle. I got cathedrals. We went to the museums and saw the Mona Lisa. And I went all the way up. Ramon didn't quite go all the way up, but he made it up at least halfway. And the next day, after we were doing some of this stuff, we caught a train. We were going to Rome. So it was an afternoon, all-night train ride. And it just so happened that they had 4 people in a compartment. So Ramon and I were in the compartment together, but there were 2 French gentlemen with us. They were with us, and they had a ton of food that they were holding. So Ramon and I didn't have anything but a deck of cards. And so we started doing some card tricks for them and stuff like that. We got about half of their food after that. They shared it with us. And the next morning, we wake up and we're in Rome. And I told Ramon, I said, "I've never seen one of the wonders of the world. Let's go to the Leaning Tower of Pisa." So I said, "Okay." So when we caught a train over there and went, and I guarantee you, I don't know how much film he had in those cameras, but he took a lot of photographs that night, or that afternoon. And then we came back. Our next move was to go to Florence. We went there for a couple of days. We left Florence. We went to Innsbruck, Austria, where they filmed The Sound of Music. And then we went to the big one, Munich, Germany. And we were in Munich and weren't far from the train station. And I said, "Let's go downtown, take a look." Okay. So we got us a cab. Ramon asked the cab driver, he says, "Do you know where Hitler's headquarters is?" Cab driver says, "I don't know who Hitler is. I don't know anything about it." Went on downtown. At night, we caught a train back to the hotel. We had a good time, by the way, there, and went to a pub in downtown that had some American tourists in it. We had a good time, fun there. But we got in a cab again, came back to the hotel. Ramon says, "You know where Hitler's headquarters is?" "I don't know who Hitler is. I don't know anything." And came on back to the hotel. So the next morning, we go out to the concentration camp where Ramon helped liberate Jews and people, and he knew where everything was. He could name every building almost. And we went and spent a good time out there, and then came on back, and we went downtown again. Let's see town again. Again, Ramon tells the cab driver, "Do you know where Hitler's headquarters is?" "Who's Hitler?" "I don't know. I don't know anything about it." No one knows anything. So we go down there again. We look around the plaza and everything, and do a little sightseeing. And then Ramon says, "Let's go on back to the hotel." I said, "Okay." He said, "Let's walk back." I said, "Walk back?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "Ramon, you think you can make it back to the hotel?" "Yeah, I can make it. Come on." So we started out to the hotel, straight line toward the hotel. He looked like he knew where he was going. All of a sudden, he veers off the path. He goes a different direction, and I'm, "God, what's happening?" I go up there and said, "Ramon, where are you going?" He said, "Follow me." I said, "Okay." We went another couple of blocks, 3 blocks. All of a sudden, there's a big white building there. And we walk up and we look, and Ramon says, "Do you see those holes up there in the wall?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "That's where we took the swastikas down." He even gave me a tour of the inside of the place, which is now a dance studio. But we went in there, and then he tells me another story. He says, "You know, there's a tunnel that went under this building." I said, "No, I didn't know anything about the building. I was like those cab drivers." But anyway, he says, "You know, I was coming out of the building one day when I was stationed here. I was coming out of the tunnel. Went out of the tunnel, and when I got almost to the end, a German man walks in and goes down to the other part of the tunnel, and I walk out, and as soon as I do, I hear a bomb go off. Bam! And blew up part of the tunnel. He was lucky that he got out there. So he had a lot of experiences after the war, just like he did during the war. But I enjoyed my trips with Ramon. We flew back from Munich. We took one more that I need to tell you about, and that is we went to the FISM convention in Beijing, China. And I planned it where we had a hotel pretty close to downtown. After it was over, we shut down that one and went to where the convention was. But we were downtown and doing things and looking around, and I said, "Ramon," he said, "What?" "Look over there in the distance. What is that?" He said, "It's a cross." I hadn't seen a cross in China. It must be a steeple to a church or something. I said, "Come on, Ramon. Let's go see if we can find it." So we went down there looking for the church and everything. We found it, went to the door, opened the door, and guess what? They were having a rehearsal for a wedding. So when they took a break and stuff, Ramon and I congratulated the bride and groom, and that's the end of my story.
Thank you, Ron. So many stories, but you see, you had to hear about Ramon setting off a bomb in Hitler's place. I mean, one time when I was visiting him, he said, "Oh, see these pictures? Yeah, that looks like they're torn out of a book." He says, "Yeah, I tore them out of a book when we were in Hitler's headquarters." You what? I'm holding pieces of paper that were in Hitler's headquarters after the war? OMG. An amazing person. Now, our technical wizard tonight is Chris Walden, a longtime friend, and I've asked him to share a Ramon story. Chris Walden.
I met Ramon when I first came to Austin in 1986, and Ramon was just such a remarkable person. He had such an amazing heart, such an amazing kindness. I'm a little weird, and Ramon was one of the only people in Austin that genuinely reached out to me, that genuinely encouraged me to come and visit him. We both shared an interest in film and in video, and we worked together with things. He would record the magic shows that were done once a year, the annual magic shows, and he set up a 2-camera shoot with a couple of different cameras, and he had me working with him on editing them. The problem is you had 2 different cameras with 2 different microphones, 2 different soundtracks, which is not the way that you normally do that in film. And so I had to work out techniques to match that stuff up. So I would wait to see someone go and touch the microphone stand. And as soon as their hand touched the microphone stand, I could match that up on the other tape and make the edit. And that was the way we worked it out. I also helped him with some of the different things he would do in the studio. And he would invite me to come to his tailor shop, just like he did with you, CJ. And he was always so welcoming, always so gracious, and always surprising. I remember when he was about my age, in his 50s, I went to visit, and there was a leak in the roof. And so I watched this man who, in my early 20s, seemed kind of elderly to me. And I watched him climb up a rickety extension ladder with a big giant bucket of roof repair tar and fix his roof. I followed up after him, and it felt trepidatious to me, but he didn't even blink at it. I remember I was there one time, and it was shortly after Desert Storm had started in Kuwait, and the politicians were tossing around the D word, which they like to do whenever something happens. And I had left college, and I didn't have anything specific going on. I was kind of freelancing at that time. And Ramon and I were talking about the possibility of being called up. And I remember him saying, well, Chris, if you get called up, you'll be scared, sure. I was scared when I was in the Battle of the Bulge, and I said, when you were what? When I was in the Battle of the Bulge, when you were what? And this kind, sweet, generous man had lived through the Battle of the Bulge. Not only through the Battle of the Bulge, but that night, most of the troops went away, and he was left there with a small group of Americans and some British troops. And that night, they were all in their shelters while the Germans bombed the hell out of that location. And when they woke up, still alive, next morning, the bombing stopped, and they came out of their shelters. The British had gone and left them all alone without saying a word. And there were lots of other things that he went through, lots of other things that he encountered, difficulties, challenges, racism, people that didn't want to see someone like him make his way up. But he was unstoppable. He was absolutely unstoppable. And something like that could have made someone cynical, but it did not make Ramon cynical. He was always kind and gracious, an old world gentleman. If you ever received a compliment from Ramon, it was not just, hey, that didn't suck. It was a proclamation. He would tell you that thing I've been watching and that thing that you are doing, it is truly wonderful what you are doing. And I see, and he would describe your future as well as any fortune teller. And you believed him. He made you feel so wonderful. He made me feel so wonderful. My deepest regret is that Ramon called me several times. I had gone and helped him assemble some cameras and some things like that. There were a few things we did there in the last year of his life. And he wanted me to come and help out with a couple of things at his house. And I said, Ramon, it's not safe for me to come over. I'm afraid I'm going to make you sick. I did not want to be the one who came into his home and brought this thing and was responsible for his end. And I missed one more chance to say goodbye. I think I did the right thing, but man, I wish it could have been otherwise. I really do. I love Ramon so much. He made such a difference to me. He made a difference to all of us. And I miss him. I miss him terribly. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. And there's very few people we can get into one small theater, particularly these days. And so I know of at least one person who said, I've got to tell a story. And thinking, okay, how can we do this? And so we asked another of Ramon's friends, J.D. Stewart, if instead of being here, he could be in his studio managing one or more remote stories. And if J.D. is ready, I believe the first story is going to be from nephew Paul Galindo.
Hope you all can hear me. So glad to see so many people there and family and friends. I'm in New Mexico right now, and I was unpacking a bunch of magic books and memorabilia and things, and I ran across this picture right here. Let's see. Scoot it back. I'm not of this century. There. This photo was taken approximately, it would have had to have been early 90s, probably 92 or 93. And we were very close at that time. And we took that in his Ace Taylor studio that he had there, where you could meet all kinds of people and just pop in pretty much whenever you wanted. And you really just didn't know who you would meet. Anyway, I'm going to tell you a story about the first magic convention I went to. This was in San Antonio, and I was in 6th grade. And I got out of school early, which of course I was thrilled about. And he picked me up in his T-Bird, and I'm sure Josie will remember that T-Bird because she just got rid of it a few years ago. And we were driving to San Antonio, and he says, why don't you grab that deck of cards there? Like, okay, there happened to be a deck of cards in the glove box. So I get it out. He says, take a card out. This is what I want you to do. And he showed me how to do a back palm, how to do a front palm, how to spin the card. And it was all while he was driving. And during this 90-minute trip, he taught me the most important thing, and that is to act surprised whenever you pull the card from, whenever you pull the card, I can't, from the air like that. And to this day, I keep that in mind, just acting surprised whenever you do something like that. One more quick thing, and I think I saw Jason in the audience. And Jason, if you're back up north, this little notice for you. There was a rehearsal that you were getting videotaped with your sister Jennifer, and you and she got into a very big argument. And Uncle Raymond just stepped back, and I noticed that the camera light was on, it was red, and he leaned over and said, someday they're going to want to see this. I don't know if you've run across that tape, but keep your eyes out open for it. You might run into it. Also, thank you all for doing this. Thank you, Kent, for showing this, and Chris for running this, and JD for hosting this. And I see my cousin Stella on the screen up there. Hi, Stella. I can see you. But thank you all for putting all this together. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
I remember Paul entering the junior magic contest at Westgate Mall. And if I remember correctly, he didn't actually do any magic, and he won anyway. Because his storytelling, his stage presence, and everything were so good. And these are things he learned from Uncle Ramon. I appreciate being able to gather people together from around the globe for what is one of the most important ceremonies that magicians have. It's called the Broken Wand Ceremony. You can guess what that means if you haven't ever seen it. And the International Brotherhood of Magicians has a version of it. The Society of American Magicians has a version of it. And both of those organizations, Ramon was a lifelong member of. I've seen certificates and trophies and stuff back here saying, congratulations on being in the TAOM for 50 years. But the certificate is more than a decade old. And congratulations on being Order of Merlin Excelsior, which means more years than most of us have been alive. He was a member of the International Brotherhood of Magicians. And so this ceremony is very important to people who have a serious love of the art of magic, because it's a way to honor someone who has given so much to the art. And it's called the Broken Wand Ceremony. Chris, may I have a wand? Thank you. This is a very special magic wand that Chris made just in honor of our friend Ramon. See, the magic wand is an amazing artifact. Magicians use, well, I told you, Ramon uses cards and coins and safety pins and thimbles and birds. But magicians also use top hats and boxes and beautiful assistants, and all of those things are used by others. You probably all have a deck of cards somewhere in your family, even if you don't do card tricks. But there's one tool of the magician's trade which is unique to magicians. I fell in love with it when I was still in elementary school, and I got a magic wand for Christmas made of polished Catalin, which I didn't even know what was, but I thought it sounded really amazing. And I now have over 1,000 magic wands in my personal collection. Now, some of them are boxes of several hundred that we use for teaching. Still, the magic wand, an absolutely amazing artifact of the magician's art. But the magician who we've talked to for so many years is now silent. And so, to begin the ceremony, I would ask that everyone take a moment of silence and just think about your relationship with Ramon Galindo. And now, the magic wand. But without the magician to wield the wand, the magic is gone. It's just a stick. And yet, the stick still has meaning for those of us who love the magician. And I'd like to present what's left of this wand to one of my favorite magicians, Jason Dariero. Jason, after all, was one of his first really serious, successful, and brightest students. And because of Jason's love of magic and skill, not just in magic, but in life, he became our first manager for Fantastic Magic Camp. And so it's a memory of your grandpa. I know you have so many memories, as do we all. And thus ends nearly a century of magic. And you know, when we see a magic show that we like, we applaud. But when we see a magic performance that inspires us, we have this tendency to rise to our feet and give the artist a standing ovation. Ramon, this is for you. Thank you, everybody from around the world. This ends our Broken Wand ceremony, but it does not end the legend of Mago Ramon